The 1950s and 60s were full of high hopes and wild imaginations. Between the jet age and the space race, people thought the future would be packed with flying cars, personal jetbacks, and robot butlers. So what did the car industry do? They dreamt up concept cars that looked like they could come straight out of a sci-fi movie. Today we're taking a closer look at 10 futuristic American concept cars that embodied the bold and often crazy ideas of the time. Buckle up. The 1951 GM LeSabre. Meet the 1951 GM LeSabre, a car so bold it might as well have had wings. This baby was inspired by the F-86 Sabre fighter jet, and it shows. It came equipped with a 3.5-liter V8 engine, pushing out an impressive 335 horsepower and 381 pound-feet of torque, which was pretty mind-blowing for its time. But the car wasn't just fast, it was packed with innovation, like a rain-sensing convertible top that automatically closed when it started raining. Think about it. In the 1950s, that was as futuristic as getting a text message from your car. The LeSabre also featured a lightweight aluminum body with magnesium panels, cutting edge for the time. And those fins, they weren't just for show. They were designed to improve aerodynamics and give the car a jet-like appearance. Even the front grille looked like the mouth of a fighter jet. The 1953 Chevrolet Corvette EX52. The 1953 Chevrolet Corvette EX52 was where it all started for the legendary Corvette line. This sleek roadster was powered by a 235 cubic inch inline 6 engine, dubbed the Blue Flame 6, delivering 150 horsepower and 223 pound-feet of torque. Not earth-shattering by today's standards, but at the time, it was enough to make people sit up and take notice. Plus, the car was 0 to 60 miles an hour in 11 seconds, which wasn't bad for a first-gen sports car. The Corvette EX52 was more than just a performance machine, though. With its fiberglass body, something almost unheard of at the time, it was incredibly lightweight, tipping the scales at just 2,850 pounds. That sleek aerodynamic design helped it cut through the wind like butter, making it a true trailblazer for American supercars. The 1954 Lincoln Futura. The 1954 Lincoln Futura wasn't just any concept car, it was a star. Best known for being the basis for the 1966 Batmobile, the Futura came equipped with a 368 cubic inch V8 engine producing 300 horsepower and a hefty 402 pound-feet of torque. With performance like that, it wasn't just flashy, it had muscle too. The Futura's standout feature was its bubble canopy roof, two massive transparent domes that gave the driver and passenger an almost 360-degree view of the road. Add in the wild tail fins and aggressive shark-like front grille, and you had a car that looked like it was ready to take flight. And don't forget the push-button transmission, which was cutting edge at the time. The 1954 Ford La Tosca. The 1954 Ford La Tosca is the kind of car that would make heads spin even today. It wasn't just futuristic in appearance, it was packed with tech. Take, for instance, the fact that it could be driven by remote control. Yes, you heard that right, a car from the 50s that could drive without sitting in it. Talk about being ahead of its time. Under the hood, the La Tosca had a standard V8 engine, but the real magic was its design. Its finned rear end and fighter jet-inspired front grille weren't just for show, they were part of Ford's vision of a sleek, aerodynamic future. While the engine specs weren't groundbreaking, the car's emphasis on triangular tail fins and remote-controlled steering was way ahead of its time. The 1956 Oldsmobile Golden Rocket. As the name suggests, the 1956 Oldsmobile Golden Rocket was all about capturing the speed and excitement of the space race. This rocket-shaped beauty was powered by a 324 cubic inch V8 that pumped out 275 horsepower. While the Golden Rocket wasn't the most powerful car of its time, its lightweight design made it incredibly agile, tipping the scales at around 3,200 pounds, quite light for the 1950s. The Golden Rocket's real claim to fame was its ultra-aerodynamic design, with a nose that resembled the tip of a jet fighter and fins that sliced through the air like a shark's dorsal fin. Oh, and the two silver domes on either side of the rear bumper? Pure space-age styling, meant to mimic rocket boosters. The 1956 GM Firebird II. The 1956 GM Firebird II was more like an airplane than a car, and that's no exaggeration. This was the first gas turbine-powered family car, and it could run on everything from kerosene to gasoline. The turbine engine pumped out 200 horsepower, which might not seem like much, but because it's a gas turbine, it was incredibly efficient and powerful for its weight. The Firebird II also came with some serious advanced tech. It had an autonomous driving system that could follow an electronic wire embedded in the road. Yep, self-driving in the 50s. Inside, it had a TV screen that could give you weather updates and traffic reports, a full 50 years before we had smartphones. The 1957 Ford Nucleon. Nuclear power in a car? Why not? That was the thinking behind the 1957 Ford Nucleon, a concept powered by a small nuclear reactor. It was designed to theoretically go 5,000 miles on a single charge, making range anxiety a thing of the past, if you could get past the idea of driving around with a nuclear reactor right behind you, of course. The Nucleon was huge, measuring 16.7 feet long and 6.5 feet wide, basically the size of a small yacht. And yet, it was only 3.5 feet tall, giving it a low, sleek profile that made it look more like a spaceship than a car. The Nucleon was as much of a showcase of science fiction as it was automotive innovation. The 1961 Chrysler TurboFlite. The 1961 Chrysler TurboFlite was built for speed, but it wasn't just about the engine. Its gas turbine engine was designed to run on everything from diesel fuel to jet fuel, making it as versatile as it was futuristic. Although the exact horsepower wasn't officially published, Chrysler claimed it had plenty of power to match its sleek design. The TurboFlite also had some wild features, like a glass bubble canopy that automatically lifted when you opened the door. And its vertical tail fins weren't just for aesthetics. They were actually functional, helping to stabilize the car at high speeds. This thing wasn't just a looker, it was an engineering marvel. The 1963 Chrysler Turbine Car. The 1963 Chrysler Turbine Car was powered by a gas turbine engine capable of running on anything from gasoline to tequila. That's right, if you ever ran out of gas, just stop by a bar and you're good to go. The engine delivered 130 horsepower and impressive 425 pound-feet of torque, giving the car an exhilarating boost of acceleration. Despite looking somewhat conventional, the turbine car was anything but. It had jet-style exhaust ports at the back and a body designed to slice through the air. The turbine engine was quiet, smooth, and futuristic, but its thirst for fuel made it impractical for everyday use. Still, Chrysler built 50 prototypes and handed them out to everyday drivers to see how people reacted. Sadly, it never made it to full production. The 1963 Ford Seattle-ite XXI. Last but not least, we have the 1963 Ford Seattle-ite XXI. This car was pure sci-fi fantasy, debuting at the 1962 World's Fair in New York. It featured 4 steerable front wheels, fingertip steering, and a travel programming computer that was essentially an early GPS system. If that's not the future, I don't know what is. Ford packed the Seattle-ite XXI with a wild idea of interchangeable fuel cell power units, meaning you could swap out different types of engines depending on what you needed, whether that was gas, electric, or nuclear power. The car itself was massive, with a long wheelbase and a futuristic jet-inspired rear end that made it look like something out of a sci-fi movie. And there you have it. These 10 concept cars from the 1950s and 60s were bold, ambitious, and sometimes a little crazy. But they all share one thing. They push the boundaries of what cars could be, showing us that the future is only as wild as our imaginations. Now, if only we could get our hands on one of those nuclear-powered Nucleons. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. Your support means the world to us.